So let's now extrapolate what we were looking at from a building perspective, and let's bring that over and out into the city perspective. So the idea is to take this core, right? Think about what we've just been talking about. Take all the siloization, the same model. We take this core, we extrapolate it out, and we bring in biomimicry. And biomimicry is when we take a look at, as you may be familiar, with what is happening in nature, because nature has been spending billions and billions of years in terms of becoming effective. And we take a look at it and we say, how could we make use of this? What models can we extract from the biology, from the analog, from the world out there, and bring it in and make use of that model for ourselves? And what's really interesting about this model is that you have a number of trees and a number of plants, and they're all are taking advantage of the same root substructure that is underneath. And all the nutrients, all quote unquote, the data that is under there, the different kinds of systems that are under there, the water, the soil, etc. They're taking advantage of that, making them grow, but also they are also feeding one another. So the idea is to take that concept and to also bring it here into the built environment and to create what we are proposing is a smart city mesh. So if you take a look at this, we are taking that infrastructure concept and we're saying, you know what, really what is common to all buildings, whether they are publicly owned or privately owned, what is common to all structures, and whether they are retail, commercial, warehousing, residential, any kind of stadiums, entertainment-oriented, theaters, et cetera, they all have the same basic needs. They all have different kinds of mobility that is required in order to bring people back and forth among them. They have different, of course, communications infrastructure for the buildings themselves, as we were seeing, but also across the building infrastructure. They have other kinds of infrastructure systems that are common to all cities: power, thermal, sewage, etc. So the idea is to create a substructure that enables all these buildings to take advantage of this. And then also to look at how they can be reflected in quality of life, social spaces, reconfiguration, and also anything that is emerging on demand. That's our next generation of value prop. And then once they have this substrate and the buildings are feeding into that substrate and also taking from and taking what they need from that substrate, we now have a mesh. And with this mesh, we're able to do something that is really interesting. All of a sudden, we're able to really build a city that is of our future, of what we want to see. And we want to see it as an interoperable, integrated whole to achieve meta behaviors. And so what we're looking at is it raises the capability for redundancy, robustness, and resilience. It increases demand response capabilities. So as a result, you don't have inventory and storage and all these kinds of things. You're actually able to be incredibly smart in delivering what is needed, when is needed to the person who needs it in the way that they need it. Load balancing from a data and energy perspective enhances flexibility and adaptability and self-healing. Imagine if your construct, if your built environment was actually able to self-heal. It would know where the issues are and automatically it would start taking care of things. It would also allow for proactive behavior so that the city could manage itself in a way. And then it all, of course, streamlines operations and really assists in the capital expenditure and operational expenditure of what is taking place in the city. So if we're able to achieve that, let's bring it up. What does it look like when you're starting to take it more into the actual space? So as we saw, smart buildings are a microcosm of smart cities. We saw that when we saw that initial grid illustration right there, that one. Then we take it forward and say, you know what? As we were saying with the mesh, let's build it out a little bit further. Let's make it a campus. What can this campus do? How can we operationalize a campus? How can we make it more efficient? How can we make sure that the students, especially now, right? I know, at least in the United States, because I'm talking to several of them, but across the board, everyone is wondering, How do we open up? This is happening globally. How do we open our campuses up? How do we educate our students, our young people, and not just our young people, our K through 12 higher education and ongoing education for all ages? How do we make it safe? In order to do that for a smart campus, you need to have your systems in place. You need to have effective communications. I can't even tell you how many campuses are now quickly, like in a mad dash, trying to satisfy the need of on-campus communications infrastructure so that they can make flexible and adjusted use of different other spaces because they need to have that 6 feet, at least here in the United States, of distance. So what other campuses, what other facilities are they going to use that were never used in this way before, whether it's a stadium, an arena, some campuses are going to be tenting. But in order to enable that, you still want, since not all students are going to be coming back, some of them will be remote. So you still need to have robust infrastructure, communications infrastructure within, but then also if you're going to be using those kind of other alternative structures, you need to have power and energy to be going to them. You need to make sure that the teachers and the students are going to have whatever they need. And then you want to be sure that the campus is going to be able to communicate out to the broader world, especially because almost all campuses are international in terms of their reach, which is also, by the way, an opportunity, right? So we are seeing things as a challenge, but there are also tremendous opportunities as a result, as we saw again from this model. I'll bring it back here. Oops. We see this as the, going back originally how I was looking, but this is the building as a space or space as a service, building as a service. We keep that in mind. And we keep in mind that with this infrastructure in place and the blues, now we have that opportunity for new business models. That is what is powering and making the smart campus of the future possible if we think about it in that way. And you can take that also to the smart neighborhood, smart community, because we are working so much from home. We are studying so much from home. That blended environment, that real and the virtual blending together, that is what is happening, and it's expanding and extending into this space. And then we have that also showing up in the smart city space.